What's up, everybody? Welcome back to DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined once again by Daniel Starkand. Part 2 of our day 1 of the winter meetings coverage. We had a video post this morning about Teoscar Hernandez and whether or not the Michael Conforto signing is good news, bad news, or no news as it relates to him. Today, we are tackling, Daniel, another set of rumors, a bunch of guys that are either former Dodgers, connected elsewhere, or not current or former Dodgers, who some people think might be future Dodgers as well. So let's get into it. Jack Flaherty, Walker Buehler, Garrett Crochet, and Nolan Arenado, the 4 rumors that I want to discuss today. Let's start with Jack Flaherty. This is a guy who's now been connected to a bunch of other teams, the Orioles, the Mets, and the Tigers, all among them. He has the advantage, Daniel, of no qualifying offer attached to him. Flaherty feels like a guy who is here. Everybody's grateful for him, but nobody is necessarily banging down the door to have him back. Do you think there is any chance that there's a reunion between Jack Flaherty and the Dodgers?
I want to say 0, but there's always like a slight little chance. So I'll give it like a 1% chance. Like, let's say his market isn't what he thought it was and he wants to take like a 1-year deal or something. Like, I could see the Dodgers being interested in that. But outside of that, I think he's as good as gone. And credit to him, he had a great year and has earned whatever contract is coming his way. We've seen what the market is for starting pitchers right now, and they're all getting paid pretty well. And he's not in the top tier of starting pitching free agents, but he's in the next tier right below it. So he's probably going to get himself a nice deal. And the Dodgers, they already added, kind of their big money, free agent starting pitcher acquisition with Blake Snell. And I think they're going to be in the mix for some of these other starters as well, just not at Flaherty's price tag, I would say.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's got to see the money that like Frankie Montas is signing for and just be rubbing his hands together. I mean, because they're paying dudes who didn't even perform well last year that you're sort of hopeful there's like some underlying metrics that maybe a couple of them that you feel decent about that you can capitalize on. And yet Flaherty was better than most of the guys other than not named Blake Snell who have already signed contracts. Now he's probably hoping for a longer term deal than like the 2-year deals that have been signed. But I'm with you. Looking at the Dodgers rotation, Snell, Glasnow, Yamamoto at the top. And then you've got Ohtani, who will be in the mix at some point. Clayton Kershaw, we assume, will be in the mix at some point. Couple guys, Roki Sasaki, who, by the way, Roki Sasaki officially posted. And so he will be signing eventually. Walker Buehler, a guy we're going to get to. And then you've got the guys already in the organization, Gonsolin, May, and Bobby Miller. And so for a Jack Flaherty type, the money and years he's going to command, I tend to agree with you, but that brings us to number 2 on this list, which is Walker Buehler. You and I have firmly established our positions on where we are with Walker Buehler. As I list off all of the names there, Buehler is a guy who's now been connected to the Cubs, even after the Cubs went out and signed Matthew Boyd. Is there room in the Dodgers rotation for Walker Buehler, especially if a guy like Roki Sasaki ends up being a Dodger? Like, are there 2 more spots or 1 more spot in the Dodgers rotation in your mind?
First of all, there's enough room for everyone. I would say, like, we just saw the Dodgers, have bullpen games on their way to a World Series. Like Andrew Friedman has talked about how he doesn't want to do that again, how he doesn't want to, be chasing a starting pitcher at the trade deadline again. So we could bank on the Dodgers adding basically as much depth as possible, just knowing that pretty much every guy you listed who's currently in the rotation has their own concerns, whether that be health, workload, wherever the case may be. They're going to need a lot of starting pitching this season. So I do think I'd say they're in on Buehler more than Flaherty just because his price point is probably going to be a little bit lower. I still think it's probably a long shot that Buehler comes back after they sign Blake Snell. You mentioned they're in on Roki Sasaki. Old 22 is going to be back at some point. We know that as well. So I don't know what the price tag is going to be for Buehler. It feels like, we just talked about all the starting pitching contracts, that have been going out. It feels like the price tag for Buehler has gone up, from what we kind of expected it to be at the beginning of the offseason. So, we'll see if they kind of get priced out there. And we'll also see what type of deal is he looking for. Like, is Buehler just looking for a 1-year deal to kind of reestablish his regular season value? I would say we all know what his postseason value is, and he showed that even when he wasn't at his best, overall this past season. But if you're Buehler, maybe you want to sign a 1-year deal with the highest AAV possible, and then you go have a bounce back season, and now you're kind of in the, Max Fried, Corbin Burns tier. Maybe not quite that high, but you could sign the big 5 or 6 year deal if you kind of show everyone like, hey, I'm still an ace caliber type pitcher.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's looking for, a 3 or 4 year deal right now with a lower AAV, but just kind of getting that security, just knowing his injury history, the most guaranteed money possible might be of interest to him. So we'll kind of see what he's looking for. If he does want to take a 1 year deal, I would say the odds of him back with the Dodgers, goes up just because we know they're not afraid to give a little extra on a 1 year deal. We just saw it with Michael Conforto. He probably got a little bit more than market value, but it's just a 1 year deal at the end of the day. They say there's no such thing as a bad 1 year deal, but I do think Buehler is definitely up in the air and probably a little more up in the air than we were hoping for coming into the offseason.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hopeful that Walker Buehler is back. I mentioned on Sunday night's show that MLB Trade Rumors had a piece up, and they said that there were some people who think Walker Buehler is only going to be signing a 1 year deal, which I know sounds crazy because of the money that has been given out to guys that are presumably worse than Walker Buehler already. But who knows? I mean, again, that sounds crazy to me. I was the guy who said I thought he was going to sign for like 2 years and 32 to 36 million. And now that number might be plus 40 plus, but we'll see how it happens. I do think the thing to note about Walker Buehler, which you kind of hinted at, this is a guy who has never been to free agency before. And so, yes, he's made some money in his career, and it's a lot more money than most of us will ever make in our careers. But like, this is a guy who hasn't ever gotten the one guaranteed contract, big contract before. He's been in arbitration, and even arbitration was kind of coming off of injuries most of the time. So nobody would blame him if there's an offer out there with 3 years and $50 million guaranteed to just say, I'm going to set my family up forever and just make sure I get this, versus a 1 year, $22-25 million deal where, is there another contract coming? Like, is it possibly as another season that's like more like the regular season, and then that next contract never materializes? It'll be interesting to see. But again, you and I are both firmly established in our positions that we are hopeful that Walker Buehler comes back after this season. Next on this list is another pitcher, Garrett Crochet. John Heyman reporting that the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Orioles, and the Red Sox are the favorites for a Crochet trade. I don't know how 4 teams can all be the favorite to do something. That feels like a lot of favorites. But where are you at on Garrett Crochet and the interest in sending a huge package? I know people think, oh, Gavin Lux can go in this deal, but it's Gavin Lux and then 2 or 3 other premium prospects.
Yeah, I would say for that exact reason, I'm pretty much out on Crochet for the Dodgers. Like, I just don't think it makes that sense to be sending some of your top prospects away for a guy who is gonna need an extension. Like, he talked about that at the deadline last year. He basically said, I ain't pitching without an extension.
Yeah.
So it's basically like signing a free agent. So if you're gonna do that, just go sign Max Fried or Corbin Burns. Like, if you're really that, if you feel like you need a top end rotation guy that bad, which I personally don't think they do. Like, they have, a lot of ace caliber pitchers, and also like Garrett Crochet has a big injury history, and he's never really thrown. He's like, last season was his first time as a full-time starter, and he was on an innings limit. So I don't know. It's not like he's a guy that you could count on to come in and give you 180 innings and be ready to go in October. Like, that is a huge question mark. And if I'm giving up a lot of my top prospects, I would say I want more of kind of a sure thing, and he's as talented as he is. He's definitely not a sure thing. So to me, if you're the Dodgers, if you're willing to give out another $150 million deal to a starting pitcher, like, just go sign one of the free agents where you don't have to give up, those top prospects, and those guys that are also more established, I would say.
Yeah, I wonder if the Tyler Glasnow deal and kind of the way that the last 12 months, the first year of Glasnow's time in the Dodgers, how much that might exist in the back of Andrew Friedman's mind when he's discussing a Garrett Crochet trade. Because I would say, look, Tyler Glasnow is way more established than Garrett Crochet, has much longer of a track record of actually being one of the better pitchers. But you went and traded for a guy who had serious health concerns, which Crochet, you could argue, has way more health concerns. I was reading we're talking going back to high school with this guy. He's basically never thrown a complete season up until last year. And Glasnow wasn't available when the Dodgers needed him. I mean, he was very good when he was healthy, and there's no doubting that Crochet's stuff is nasty. But I just wonder if you're going to go give out money to a guy like Crochet, which, as you pointed out, is going to cost you some top prospects. I mean, we're talking 1 or 2 guys from the rushing DePaula, Zaire Hope category, as well as, Maddox Bruns or not Maddox Bruns, Jackson Ferris, like one of your top pitching prospects as well. And so that seems like a lot after just watching an injury-prone guy come over and not be available to help you go and win the World Series.
Yeah, and we've talked about it. The Dodgers have a lot of those guys who are, super talented, like ace caliber pitchers, but have, their health concerns like that. We know the Dodgers love those guys, so it's not surprising that they're in on Crochet here, but I just don't really think they need to add another one of those guys into the mix, especially when it's going to cost you, like you just mentioned, 3 of your top prospects at least. Like it's not like, you put an offer together and the White Sox say yes. Like, you are bidding against other teams. You just mentioned Heyman said there's 4 or 5 teams that are all considered favorites, which they can't all be the favorites. And some of those teams were in on Juan Soto, and now they kind of have to pivot to what they're doing next. And maybe their offer for Crochet, like they just got a little more serious with their offer for Crochet. And if you're the Dodgers, you don't want to get into a bidding war, when it comes to prospects. Like, you don't mind it if it's just money we're talking about with free agents, but when you're talking about giving up your top prospects, I just don't think it's necessary, especially when there are some really good free agents still out there, whether that be the top end guys or even the mid-tier guys like a Walker Buehler. Like, I would much rather, give Walker Buehler a 2-year deal than trade top prospects for Crochet and sign him to a long-term extension, given his health risks, which are pretty similar to Buehler's, I would say,
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I wish I had a video camera on Blake Williams when he heard us say that we would rather have Walker Buehler back as a free agent signing than to trade everything for Garrett Crochet. Keep in mind, by the way, on the Soto piece, that Crochet could be attached to an outfielder that's rumored. So if somebody was looking for Soto, that could be sort of a backup plan. Last one here, Nolan Arenado. Buster Olney had a very strange tweet that you could try and decipher, and you could kind of see what Buster Olney was trying to say, even if maybe it wasn't communicated in the most effective way possible. But he basically said executives expect the Cardinals would have to eat money or take on money in order to trade Arenado. But then in the same tweet said this, quote, Chris Taylor is owed $17 million on his deal. If LA wants him, seems like there is middle ground to be found. We know Chris Taylor's a guy who could potentially be going out. Arenado is owed a lot of money, way more than Chris Taylor is over the next 3 seasons. Plus some deferred money that would be owed as part of that as well. Arenado's a guy the Dodgers have been connected to for a decade. To me, Daniel, it feels like this ship has passed.
I agree 1,000%. Like, we were talking about this in our group text the other day, and I put out the meme from Mean Girls where she says, like, stop trying to make fetch happen or whatever. And I said, like, that's for Arenado. Like, I don't understand why he keeps being linked to the Dodgers. Like, they have a first baseman, first of all. Like, Max Muncy is better than Arenado right now and way cheaper. And I know everyone thinks it's just as simple as, hey, move Max Muncy to second base. Like, I don't think that's a possibility at this stage of his career. And if you are doing that, then you're probably putting Mookie Betts at shortstop, which would probably create the worst up the middle defense, like maybe of all time. And if you're the Dodgers, I know, like, you'd make up for it at the plate with your bats, but I don't think you want to be trotting out a middle infield defense of Max Muncy and Mookie Betts. It's like, maybe if it was for prime Arenado, like, but sure. Considering, it's a very diminished version, a very expensive version, and he's not even, like, forget at the plate, he's already declining defensively as well. And I don't think there's going to be some big resurgence necessarily there. Like, the guy's had a really great career, a really long career, and sometimes when you get to your mid-30s, like, you start to fall off. Like, that's pretty normal here, and I think that's what we're seeing with him. Like, if this was 2021, like you said, they've been linked to him forever, like, then maybe you're definitely more interested there. But I think at this point, you have Max Muncy at third base. He's better. He's cheaper. He loves being a Dodger. Like, I don't want to mess with that guy. I would go up to Max Muncy right now and say, you are starting third baseman, and that is not changing no matter what, because he's earned that, in my opinion. And I just don't think Arenado makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, Arenado is going to turn 34 in April. 2022 was his last good season. In case you didn't know, this upcoming season is going to be 2025. There's a decent sized gap between those two. He posted a 149 weighted runs created plus in 2022. That was down to 106 and 102 the last 2 years. So he's basically a league average offensive player across 300 games. He has been durable. Exit velocity, barrel rate, hard hit rate, all bottom 12% in baseball last year. His bat speed was 28th percentile last year. So that's the number I'm looking at with a guy who's about to turn 34 is, well, does he still have bat speed? The answer is no, one of the worst in Major League Baseball. The whiff rate is good. The K rate is good. There are numbers that would tell you his defense is still very, very good. And yet I could not agree more with what you just said, that Max Muncy is a better player, a more stable player, a more like, you just know what you're getting with Max Muncy. He fits what the Dodgers are trying to do. And we saw what happened when Max Muncy was out of the lineup in the middle of last season. The Dodgers' offensive woes, like, something changed when Max Muncy left the lineup. And so no need to mess with things. I couldn't agree more on Arenado with you there. One last thing here, because this broke this morning, is that Roki Sasaki has officially been posted. We expected that this would happen. He's not expected to sign Daniel until after January 15th. Again, he has 45 days to sign, but from December 15th to January 14th is a dead period. He can't sign in there. So he will have, somebody else could do the math, a week or so to sign after January 15th. You've read everything, and some people sound like they have sources connected to Sasaki. Most people sound like they're just repeating the same stuff. We had Ben Badler of Baseball America on, who's one of the best on international free agents. He has the Dodgers as the favorites. Do you have any sense of confidence about where Roki Sasaki is going to sign?
Not really, just because we don't really know much about this guy,
Yeah.
Like even going back last offseason, like to Shohei, like the Dodgers were the most logical destination by a mile. Like, it didn't really make sense to go anywhere else but the Dodgers, but we still weren't super confident just because, Shohei was a guy, kind of a mysterious guy who people don't know a whole lot about the guy outside of the baseball field. And I think Roki is very similar there. Like, we're sitting here, he could basically choose between any of the 30 teams he wants. Like, I don't think anyone would say no to him. So it just comes down to what he's looking for. Like, if he's trying to win and live in the best place to live and make the most money off the field, that's all that says Dodgers. But who knows what, if he wants to play with Shohei and Yamamoto, or maybe some guys don't want to do that. So he's really a tough guy to really peg and know like what he's looking for. But I do think maybe we'll get some more insight over the next month or so, because I would imagine it's going to be a big time recruiting pitch, like similar to what we just went through with Juan Soto for the last month. Like that probably going to be Roki Sasaki for the next month with even more teams involved, just because money is not an issue here. So we'll see. But I'm kind of just like everyone else. Like, we could speculate, but I don't think anyone really knows what he's looking for.
Yeah, we know some of the things that we assume. I shouldn't say we know anything. We have lots of things we assume would be important to somebody like Roki Sasaki. There are reports that a lot of these Japanese players want to play on the West Coast. There are reports that a lot of these guys would probably want to be in a 6-man rotation when they come over. They obviously want to win. There's a reason to believe that playing with Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto would be a plus for a guy like Roki Sasaki. There's reason to believe the Dodgers are one of the best at developing pitchers. And if you're coming over early and giving up lots of money and you need to make sure you nail your next contract, it feels like the Dodgers would be a great place to do that. Like, all these things make sense. We have heard none of these things from Roki Sasaki or anybody near him's mouth. So I've said before, I totally understand why these assumptions are being made. I think they're fair assumptions, but they are assumptions. As long as we call them what they are, I think it's reasonable. I understand why the Dodgers are believed to be favorites. It makes total sense. But I just would not be shocked if it's the Padres or if it's the Mariners or something random. Like, I just think there's lots that we don't know. And until there's an announcement that he has chosen where he's going to play, I think we're all going to be in wait and see mode. So there you go. There's the hot stove recap. Flaherty, Buehler, Crochet, Arenado, even Roki Sasaki. Lots going on with the winter meetings happening. If you missed the conversation Daniel and I had earlier this morning about Teoscar Hernandez and the connection to the Michael Conforto signing and whether or not that means Teoscar is gone, go ahead and check that out. A 2-part Dodger Head shorts for you today. That is Daniel Starkand. I am Jeff Spiegel, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. As always, go Dodgers.